So we received samples from the Apollo 17 mission, which were returned to Earth in December of 1972, so nearly 50 years ago.
Basically collected on the moon, brought back, then they were frozen within about a month of being returned, so no one's ever looked at them since. It's very exciting.
A curation facility at NASA Johnson Space Center sent us the samples, and they did have to do some special efforts to keep them cold because we wanted them to stay frozen. So they had a special cold shipping box with panels that were frozen in a very cold freezer and a chunk of dry ice. We picked it up from the receiving office here at Goddard, opened it up, pulled the samples out, and stuck them straight in our freezer and locked them up safely.
So these frozen samples were actually collected from a region on the moon that was in shadow from the sun. So it was basically a large boulder. In the near future, we're going back to the moon and hopefully going to the polar regions of the moon, where some of these regions are in permanent shadow and they don't see the sun, you know, they're cold. These particular samples are really great analogs for what we might expect to see in the polar regions when we go back.
So we actually started last week to process the samples. So the samples we got are basically dirt, lunar dirt, and we basically made moon tea out of them. So we basically take the lunar sample, seal it up with a torch in a little glass test tube full of water, stick it in an oven overnight and boil it, and we're just pulling out those soluble compounds that we care about, the same way you'd make tea with boiling water at home.
What we're trying to do is answer some questions about the history of this sample experienced at the surface of the moon. The surface of the moon is a really hostile environment. You know, it's not like here on Earth where we have this beautiful atmosphere that protects us from the nasties of space. So we have particles from the sun that are continuously hitting the surface of the moon, and we've got galactic cosmic rays that are coming in and penetrating into the surface as well. They actually create noble gases in these particles. So you can imagine that there's none to begin with, and then as they get exposed to this space environment, they kind of get more and more buildup of noble gases. And our technique is to actually unlock those noble gases from the sample and measure them so we can come up with what we call a cosmic ray exposure age. So it's basically how long this sample has been sat at the surface, being exposed, so basically getting a space tan. Say 50 years ago, this same technique, which is called noble gas mass spectrometry, would probably need anywhere, tens to hundreds of milligrams to do the same thing that we now do with a couple milligrams.
It's really special to be part of this, and particularly because I can look back at the papers and the processes that the curation office and the scientists in the 1970s thought about, and they put so much care into preserving these samples for future science, to making sure that they were going to be at the best conditions, so that as we develop new techniques, we're able to go and look at these samples and get new answers to the science questions that were being asked.
You know, I'm still studying these samples 50 years later from the Apollo mission, the original Apollo missions. And, you don't know what's going to be in another 50 years, but I'm still a part of the Apollo dream of going to the moon and bringing samples back. So the fact that we have Artemis now is amazing. Like, having our own Artemis generation is really exciting. I just can't wait to see people go back to the moon.
You there, Scott? Scott? There we go.
Of course I'm here.
I could hear just a scratching noise and wasn't sure what was, and then I realized you're trying to get a video to run.
Yeah, so but pretty interesting video about the about the Apollo 17 samples and stuff. So they still have like pristine stuff they've never touched.
Lots of it.
Grabbed it. It was hermetically sealed, stored away.
Yeah, there's lots of it. I watched a thing on YouTube. Destin, I think it's Destin Gibson, but Dustin. Smarter. It's Destin. There's another one.
Oh,
Destin.
another. Okay.
Yeah, it's Destin. I think his name is Destin Gibson. But anyway, Destin, somebody does Smarter Every Day on YouTube,
Okay.
and his dad worked on the sun shields for the James Webb Space Telescope for 10 years, and just fascinating. But he also has a piece on the lunar samples and gets to go into the lunar samples. And actually, I think if I remember, he actually gets to hold a lunar sample in his hand through that rubber glove cabinets. He goes into really good detail about how they keep those pristine and what they did. And when they break them, every single little fractional amount gets a number and gets cataloged where it came from and what it was. And so,
Yeah.
like when they whack it to get a little piece off, it may break off other pieces and those pieces get logged. And it was truly amazing that, and there's one lady who still works there, has been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And, it's just amazing.
So I listened years ago. I listened to an NPR radio program, and they had one of the scientists that got some of the very first soil samples from the moon. Okay, like Apollo 11. I believe I may have this story a little bit out of but I'll give you the gist of it. Basically, they give him the soil samples, and they're in these tubes. Okay. And he has to fly, I don't know, to another facility, maybe JPL or something like that. And he's got him on carry-on, okay? And so he has to put him like in overhead luggage. And he said, and these tubes are like rolling around and bouncing back and forth.
This is crazy.
He said after all the security, all the, and all the rest of it, he finally gets on the plane, and it's just like you got lunar soil samples bouncing around.
The most valuable substance on Earth, and it's just bouncing around in the overhead.
Yeah. If it was the Hope Diamond, they would have been even way more careful. Except there's a story about that too, where they had to ship it, and so what did they use? U.S. mail. They used the U.S.
It's secure.
Mail, stuck it in a regular box and sent the Hope Diamond someplace.
If no one knows what it is, it's perfectly secure.
That's right.
Yeah.
As long as it makes it, right?
That's right. So
Pekka's on right now. He says, just sunny greetings. I had a bath in my bathtub. It's not the same as the Mediterranean Sea, but warm, cold as you like. That's
So
right.
what's the weather in Stockholm today?
I guess
Pekka
it was,
would be
I guess
curious.
It's
Sunny, yes. It was. Boy, we had a storm here for a couple hours, Scott. Heavy rain,
yeah,
hail.
Sure
Had
did.
some light hail. It was.
Size hail. Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. So
All right.
we've got Harold's on, Pekka's on, Beatrice is on. I think that Mike. I believe that Mike Wiesner is on there. Yes, he is. So nice to have you guys watching today. And we had a great Global Star Party last night, our 92nd. And so that was a lot of fun, very informative. We had, if you didn't watch it, you can watch it in rerun. Of course, we had David Levy on. Carol Orge, who's the president of the Astronomical League, was on. David Eicher talking about magnesium and calcium, which is kind of interesting. He said, he always starts off, the bad news is I got 5,000 different minerals to kind of go through here. So, but Bob Fugate, if you don't know who Bob Fugate is, you'll find him under Robert Q. Fugate. Like if you look at him on I think he's on Wikipedia, he is the father of laser-guided active optics astronomy. And so he is just an amazing pioneer in all of that, but that sharpened up the views through the largest telescopes in the world. But on top of that, he's a very active, very enthusiastic amateur astronomer, and he loves astrophotography. He showed us last night, because the theme was shadows and illumination. So, and we got this, we have this lunar eclipse coming up. He showed how big the Earth's shadow is by taking a pattern of Earth, or not Earth, but the moon, and like in a circle, and you can see the edges of the shadow all the way around, and the Earth's shadow is just huge against the moon, like that, and it's just really incredible. Samantha Jewett from the Royal Astronomical Society was on. She's involved in their astronomy outreach programs. Molly Wakeling came back on. We had Dan Higgins and Peter from Astroworld TV, and so that was just the first segment, and then it went on for some time last night. We went on till about maybe about 10:30.
That's not too late.
Oh, Michael Carroll, space artist, was on. Space artist and author. He gave away 2 books to the people that were doing all of that. Karina actually is her name. Karina, like the constellation Karina. Karina Letelier has told her story about giving up her engineering job. She studied, got a degree in engineering, was working as an engineer, quit her job so that she could do astrophotography full time.
Wow.
Yeah. And so she does that 7 days a week.
So
That's pretty cool.
Does she go busking on the curb with trying to get people to throw money into her telescope case?
Yeah, apparently she's doing okay. So
Okay. Yeah.
She works. She's down in Chile, and she showed us some amazing night sky Milky Way shots from Chile. Marcelo Souza from Brazil was there. Norm Hughes, who watches our programs a lot, was on. He gave a nice program, showed us some beautiful astrophotography. Maxi Falaris and Adrian Bradley joined us as well. So anyways, that was Global Star Party 92. We have Global Star Party 93 coming up next Tuesday, May 10th, and the theme is collisions and creation. So
Gee, you've got the 100th one coming up here pretty soon. Huh.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I got 8 more to go.
Wonder if we care at all.
About the 100th.
Yeah, to mark a milestone,
we'll have
maybe.
To throw in some. We'll have to throw in a 100-degree eyepiece or 2.
I was just thinking. I was thinking 100 planispheres, but you're going big. Yeah, I'm joking. It's a joke. We don't give away a planisphere or what, but yes, a 100-degree eyepiece will be the grand door prize.
Sure. Anyways, hello to everybody out in the audience. But you went to a real star party, an in-person star party called Stars and Sauce over the weekend. What was it like?
It was great. The weather was semi-cooperative some of the time. We got there Thursday afternoon, got set up and did a little bit of solar astronomy with Tyler's Lunt and with an 80 millimeter Explore Scientific 80 millimeter with a solar with our sun catcher on it. Mm-hmm. And we had some decent sucker holes Thursday night. There was like 300 people there Thursday night. And
this is a music festival, right?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, we didn't. This is a music festival. It's called Stars and Sauce, and it's actually was billed as an astronomy, a music festival and astronomy festival, and that was the marketing. And I talked to literally dozens and dozens of people who said they came to it because of the astronomy. A few of them had never been to a music festival before, but came because it sounded like a cool experience. And Thursday night there was 300 people there, and I think the gate ended up being about 1,500 people overall, which is it was down from what they were hoping for over 2,000. But with rain forecast on Tuesday at 80% on Saturday, that scares people away from a camping festival.
Sure.
But I think there was a lot of people who showed up Saturday, as it obviously was going to be nice. There was a bunch of people came in on Saturday, and we were continuous. People were walking up at 1 and 2 in the morning, totally cloudy, going, "Hey, are you looking at the stars?" It's like, no, there's clouds. And it was, but we had talked to them, And Saturday night, it cleared off Saturday, had some great solar. And then Saturday night started out pretty good. And then the humidity came up and had bad dew. Transparency went down. You could still see, we had the 20-inch out, and with a 120-degree eyepiece on it, you could see M81 and M82, same field of view. And there's an NGC object nearby, and it was just spectacular. And I had people I had a carbon fiber 127 FCD 100 out.
Okay.
And there were multiple people. I'd say, they'd walk up and I'd say, okay, you'll see a white line and a circle. They'd say, oh, yeah, yeah. Right off the bat, they could see it and describe it. And, probably a dozen people went, there's a fuzzy patch up there, but next to it, what's that? And I'd say, oh, that's an NGC object. You just saw another galaxy. And they were blown away that they were seeing galaxies that far away and had a great time. So I took some pictures while I was there. Let me go ahead and share my screen and make sure I share my... I don't have to share the sound because we deleted the one video with sound. So you seeing that, Scott?
Yes.
All right. So
let's see. So it looks like I'm looking at your whole desktop. You might want to unshare and reshare.
helps if you click the correct one.
Yeah.
There we go. Share just the PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, so this is Donnie and Donna Houston, who have an Arkansas outreach nonprofit they've started for astronomy.
Can you take that into display mode?
That is in display mode.
We see all the controls and notes. And next slide.
Well, once again, it's showing the shared screen over on the other one. Okay, third time's a charm here, Scott.
Let's see.
I'm just going to share a screen too. I'm going to share a screen too.
We had some of those problems last night too.
There we go.
Ah, that's it. Okay.
There we go. So, we were the title sponsor. It's Arkansas Stars and Sauce. Says brought to you by Explore Scientific here on the sign under the person sitting on the ground looking up a refractor telescope. And that's Donnie and Donna Houston and Tyler Bowman taking their picture. I always like to get this picture places, a picture of someone taking a picture. And there was one time, and it was an event, I got a picture of a person taking a picture of and it was really a cool picture, like 5 layers deep. But I digress. Here is Tyler, the Stars and Sauce gave away the last remaining FirstLight 10-inch Dobsonian. We got a shipment coming, and they really wanted that telescope, so they bought it out of the showroom as an unboxed piece and with some eyepieces and a fighter scope, and gave it away to one of the attendees. We weren't up there. I'm trying to get a picture of it that we can use at some point, but apparently the person was just tickled pink to have won it, and we're local somebody. So we're excited to win that telescope, and it's set up there on stage the whole time. And they talked about it all the time between sets. And the plan was for all the artists to sign it, but that apparently didn't happen, but that's okay. Here's Tyler looking at the sun on, this would be Thursday evening. The person looking is the staff photographer who was there. And you can see he's running this tracker mount using the Explore Scientific power bank. And when I looked over there underneath the trailer behind him, I have red rope lights. They're really nice, put off a good amount of light, really make it easy to see around the camper and the places under there. Mm-hmm. And here's a girl that was running around all over the place, and she came up and hang out with us a lot, and looking through, seeing the prominence as well. And over there in the background, under the tent, you can see the 20-inch Dob sitting there, waiting to go into action.
So Ken, how many people watched the concerts versus how many people came and looked through the telescopes?
I think because it's hard to say, because we had people come back 4 or 5 times over the course of Saturday night. But, I'm going to guess well more than half. I mean, we had a continuous 25 to 35, 40 people all the time. When doing solar astronomy. It was a little bit slower, but at night there was a continuous crowd there Saturday night, even after it got bad dewy, till 1:30 to 2 o'clock in the morning.
So you guys were working pretty hard. And did you ask people about, what drew them to the event, or
absolutely.
Was the Star Party a draw at all, or?
Absolutely. Where are you from? Why'd you come to this music festival? And a significant percentage, I'd say I probably had 25 or 30 people that answered, I came because of the telescopes, and a couple of them, they had never been to a music festival before, but they thought it sounded cool doing a music festival. And we had people from all over Arkansas, Oklahoma, people from Kansas. There were some people from Kansas City I talked to, a decent number of locals, but a lot of people from a fairly good distance away. Mm-hmm. And the people from Kansas City, I was like, well, there's an astronomy club in Kansas City, and a surprising number of people had telescopes and said they used them. And I said, well, how much? Like once a year? And they say, no, probably once a month. And we had great conversations. So it was certainly a draw. And none of the people I talked to had telescopes like what we had. They were, you can see here in this picture up, that's Donnie and Donna's 152 millimeter triplet on a Los Mandy G11 with PMC8. Our go-to system.
Oh, that is their setup. I see.
Yes, that is their setup. Nice. That's their setup. Very and nice. Tyler behind is powering up the and testing to make sure that connects and everything's working. Go ahead.
And Kent, you have done a lot of astronomy outreach out here in Northwest Arkansas. Yes. The Sugar Creek Astronomical Society has star parties at Hobbs State Park and stuff like that. And I know you would get a couple 100, 300 people show up at some of these things. Some of them you had many more, like at Pea Ridge.
We had the military park counted as 1,800 people.
1,800 people. So how would you rate this particular event against your biggest events?
That 1,800 people, and the biggest event at Hobbs was, I think they counted 500 people actually entered the door of the building, and there was a couple of hundred people more out in the parking lot that never went inside. So it's hard to say how many people were there. The thing about the one at Pea Ridge National Military Park, Scott, was that it was one night for 3 hours, right? Mm-hmm. And cars just poured in there and caused a traffic jam out on the U.S. highway in front. Right. And at one point, and Bill Murphy, who's now the president of Sugar Creek, was running behind, and he thought there was a wreck. It was so bad. Traffic was so bad. Sure.
So you have this event. How did this event compare to the Pea Ridge event?
It was music playing. That was completely
different. As far
different.
as like intensity, I mean, was it?
This was laid back,
or was it just?
There was never a crush of people. It was a continuous people coming and going constantly over a spread of all night. Literally Saturday night, I got cold about 3 o'clock, and I couldn't get warm, and I went to bed. And Catherine Auld, who was there, she went to bed about 1 and set her alarm for 4:30. Yeah. And Catherine's I was
a NASA Solar System ambassador. Right. For those of you who don't know,
her doctorate is in her doctoral thesis was the geomorphology of Mars. So in other words, how to track the changing geology of Mars and what it implicates. And some of her research is cited in the NASA papers, the research papers that talk about water formed these structures, and her work is cited in some of those works.
That's very cool.
So she's got a cool doctorate degree about Mars, and she got up to watch the planetary alignment, and I didn't hear her alarm go off. I didn't hear her get up and go out. I was dead to the world. And Tyler ended up staying up all night, and watched. He went to bed before the sun came up, but he saw the planets, and we were worried that the planets weren't going to get over the mountain to the southeast of us, but they got up pretty high and were pretty nice. So here's a cool picture, a 3-second exposure using my iPhone. Scott, you're a photographer.
iPhone.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. So you got stars that you can see. You got this green laser pointer thing going on. Red flashlights, red illumination. Pretty cool.
In my trailer back there, I've got one of those red rope lights inside, so you can go inside and have light and not have to worry about white light. But you can tell over here on the left, there's somebody with their phone out, and we weren't Nazis about white light. We'd say, please, no need to turn your flashlights off, when they came walking up. But we weren't brutal about it. But Scott, 25 years ago, how hard would this picture be to take?
You would have to have been pretty careful. 25 years ago, I would have been definitely a long exposure on a tripod, using some pretty fast film,
Yeah, this is handheld. Just
handheld.
Tap it.
Not
tap
happening. You get stars on a handheld shot.
Yeah. Tap it. Get in focus on Tyler sitting there, and hold still, arms in, just like we would with a camera. And try and tap that button without moving your thumb too much, and just hold still. And through the magic of signal to noise ratio, it takes a pretty darn good picture.
So almost everybody today has, if they have a smartphone, they've got an Astro camera.
This proves it.
Yeah.
I could go back and look at the time, and I know I'm facing a little bit east and north, and I probably got to do that. Go back and label those stars. Just to say, put the circles on. I'm gonna work on that at some point.
Sure.
So here's I had some artists there, and here's some a person who had done some artwork specifically for the festival.
Okay.
Obviously,
telescope there and constellations and the little rocket flying up. That's it's a fish. It's not a rocket.
It's a fish. Yeah, it's Pisces.
Pisces.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I really especially like the spotlight on the moon. That's literally on the moon, like a desk lamp or something. But Lyra, for the life of me, I can't think what the constellation is over on the far right. It looks like Corvus the Crow, but shaped like Corvus, and that's where it would be. But that shows like the scales of justice or something. I don't know. But anyway, so don't know. And what I was amazed by, and I don't know why this picture is so milky looking, but I like it. There were lots and lots and lots of families with kids at this music festival. Lots of families were out, and kids running around all over the place having a great time. And they'd come up and say, "Hey, can we look at your telescope?" Sure. And we'd let them look at the telescopes and talk to them. They'd run off, and a couple hours they'd come back and want to look again. It was a great time.
Did you enjoy it yourself?
It was hard work. I mean, because literally,
it always is. But
you've been.
Was it something that
it was enjoyable?
Gosh, I hope this thing ends pretty soon. Or were you enjoying it?
I was enjoying it. It was great talking to so many people. Everybody was really happy to be there and glad it wasn't raining, and it was just really, really happy, laid back crowd. And everybody was talkative, had great discussions.
Cool.
Had some astrology people come up, and
astrology people.
I didn't, I talked about the math of why things are, and it's very predictable. And they talked about how they believe this and that, and it was great. No arguments. There was no
browbeating going on. Okay.
We didn't have a single person. I did not have a single person or hear a single person ask about flat Earth or aliens or faking the moon landings, which is astounding for how many people we have. Because if we do a star party at Hobbs with 150 or 200 people, you're going to hear those questions, all of those questions. Not one time did I hear those questions. And it was all good. So we hung red light flashlights from underneath the telescopes so people could see where they were real easy. We also took those glow in the dark, because this is in a field, and at one time, at some of these music festivals, they'll have 8,000 people there. and there's 6,000 people, and they're all camping. And when it rains, there's a couple of big old ruts that go through the area, and those big old ruts are trip hazards. And so we put the glow-in-the-dark red wristbands that my wife has bought for just such uses to put around the base of a telescope or whatever. And I want to give a shout out to Catherine Auld was there, Donnie and Donna were there, Molly Ussery, who's the vice president of Sugar Creek Astronomical Society, came over Saturday afternoon and spent a good part of the night there. And Rick Marshall, former president of Sugar Creek Astronomical Society, was there Saturday got there late noonish, and had a visual rig set up during the day and then a visual rig at night. And they made it much more pleasurable because, they were there, right? And more telescopes, more people to talk to, tremendous conversations. It was all good. Had a couple of those Dobbs, the 16 and a couple of 10s over there, as long as in the 20 with eyepieces, and we just let people go over and use them. Here you go. Here, look through there, find what you look, put the red dot, look through the telescope. And those telescopes got a fairly decent amount of use throughout the night on Saturday night. So this is Tyler Bowman's rendition. He set up his camera and pointed it north and had it take I believe it was a 5-second exposure every 15 seconds.
It just looks like daytime out there.
Well, but if you look closely, you can see some stars up here. I think that's the Little Dipper. Can you see my cursor?
Yeah, I can see your cursor, but those...
I don't know if that's the Little Dipper. This might be Polaris. Yeah. We'll know here in just a second because it's going to start. Here we go. No, it wasn't the Little Dipper. There was cars driving around, people going up to the camp, the campgrounds up in the woods. But you can see people using the telescopes and, green lasers talking. And we caught it a number of meteors. If you go frame by frame, there's a number of meteors. There were some pretty cool satellites that were flashing satellites. And here's what happened when you don't have a dew heater on your camera and dew happens. I think it's still pretty cool to see what's going on and how the light moves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he moves it, and then there we go, and that's the end of it. So had a focus problem there at the end, but that's the end of my presentation.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I mean,
yeah.
I think that those components make for, a music festival, an astronomy event. If it's on the new moon or the weekend of like a first quarter moon, the first 5 or 6 days of a moon, are a very plausible, doable event, and they're already planning for a couple of events next year, and maybe one on the road from somewhere. So I think that format is a successful format.
That'll happen next year, or like a couple of years down the road.
I think you're going to see probably a Stars and Sauce this fall. And I think next year you'll see a Stars and Sauce here and one on the road somewhere near a larger city, Austin, somewhere like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. We had some comments here. Jim Norwood said, it looks like your trailer's about to fall over.
It looks that way, but people would come up, and a couple of people, they were like, what the heck are you thinking? And I went, it's level. And they said, no, it's not. And I'd pull out the level and take them over and put it on the floor, and they'd go.
Those bubbles right there, huh?
Yeah, dead on. I was probably a quarter of an inch off level, and people were like, Jiminy Christmas, that's an optical illusion. I'm like, absolutely it is, because it looked like it was setting up our cattywampus at a weird angle. But it wasn't. It was square and level.
So Chris Larson's still recovering. Chris, we're glad you're getting better. I don't know exactly what was wrong, but
I think Chris has COVID. Chris posted he has COVID.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way,
the wind out of you. That's right.
By the way, I need to
literally.
it does, and then you can't get the wind back in you. I need to give a shout out to Annie. Annie Scarborough, one of the customer service people, handles the Explorer Alliance details. She took Tyler's, I don't know, couple of thousand images, and she said, "I'll put those together." She didn't know how to do it, and she sat down and in 15 minutes figured out the magic of magic of a
time lapse kind of.
She made the time lapse. Tyler took the pictures, and Annie produced the time lapse. And she sat down and through the magic of a search engine, figured out how to do it and put it together. And she put together that time lapse as well. And there's a couple of cool pictures I want to pull out for future use. Some flashing satellites are going through. They're not airplanes; they're flashing satellites. Caught a number.
They tumble and then reflect the light.
Correct.
Sunlight. Okay.
Correct. Because the airplanes are going a lot quicker. The airplanes just go zip. Make much longer trails. Tyler caught a number of meteors. People saw a lot of meteors, and some people.
That's cool.
The first meteor they ever saw, and you'd hear them squeal, and my guess is they've either never been outside, looked up, or alternatively, they live in a city where they just can't see them. And people were just fascinated by the meteors as well. And it's like, any summer night you can go out and see 5, 6, 7, 10 an hour if you just get in a dark spot and just look up. It's right there for the scene. So that was a cool little part of it as well. We had no moon the whole weekend, so there was no moon for people to look at. If you could do it, like I said, so you had a couple of nights of moon in the western sky that set right at sunset, or a couple hours after sunset. You could still do exactly what we did, but people would have the enjoyment of seeing the moon as well. But this weekend it was the dark of the moon that weekend. So, and cool. We had lots of discussions about a lot of science stuff, and it was really a fun weekend, very stimulating conversations, but 5 hours of sleep and then stand up all day and then 5 hours of sleep and literally, you have a lull in the action and say, I got to sit down for a few minutes and then go back up.
Music played through the night or just
music? The last set on Friday night started at 4:30.
Okay.
And the last set on Saturday night started at 4. And I thought
in the afternoon.
AM. Sunday morning. Sunday morning, 4 a.m.
Sunday morning. Wow. Okay.
Saturday morning at 4 a.m. Literally went all night. Yeah.
So I don't think long music, and then the last set comes on at 4 a.m.
So sets were about 2-hour sets, and then they'd have an hour break to set the stage, and they'd be playing, canned music the whole time.
So there's always music playing.
Always music. There was music playing. We got there at 2:00 on Thursday, and music played continuously, and it was still playing when we left. I'm sure the last thing they did was unplug the amps and turn off the music. Otherwise, there was music playing the whole time. Yeah. So a couple of great food trucks. Good coffee. It was awesome.
Did they have wine and beer for like the adult crowd, or?
They had a VIP tent. If you bought a VIP pass, you could
have a beer. Or
go over there and have a beer or wine. I don't think they had mixed drinks and beer. I don't think they had any wine.
Mixed drinks. Okay.
Yeah. So they had a nice swag tent, and the blessing was it didn't pour down rain. And when I went to bed,
today.
like it did today, boy, brutal. Friday night when I went to bed, there was storms in Oklahoma City, and I thought, I have an app on my phone that shows the track and the hour track, and I was like, okay, I'm going to bed. It's going to hit about 3:30 to 4 in the morning, and I didn't wait. When I woke up, I was like, well, either I slept really hard or it didn't rain or thunder. And they said it was off to the west and they were looking at the radar, and it just went and fizzled out and died off before it reached us, which they were very happy about, because, brother, if it would have rained like it rained here today, we'd have been wet puppies. You know,
yeah.
I mean, we had a couple of, waterproof tarps and,
Sure.
nylon tarps over the Dobbs, but we wanted to put we had the pop-up set down on top of them, and then the wind still was so bad it started lifting it off the ground, and we said, oh, we better take that down. And so we put the tarps up, and we had some tent stakes, so we take this tape, we tent staked the tarp down. But I think that the Dobbs would have been okay, and all the other telescopes had trash bags over the tops of them, the mounts. We took contractor bags.
When we're star party in the Florida Keys, we usually have 1 or 2 rain days, where something happens,
Does it rain like
a tornado? We had a tornado one time come through the camp. So
does it rain like it rained here? That kind of rain? Because Florida can get some pretty tropical rains. I mean, they're subtropical. They
we
got
had a tornado. So
yeah.
So a water spout came right off the ocean and kind of did its business and some telescopes. So, but no one got hurt, or anything like that. So, but I think some telescopes got flipped around and that type of thing. People still talk about it. So.
Yeah, that becomes legend.
I was at the Riverside Telescope Makers Conference one time, and we had 100-mile-per-hour straight line winds come through.
Well, you were in a tornado to show once, weren't you?
And that was at the
in Vegas
Retailer show. That was a convention show in Salt Lake City. And
Salt Lake City.
An F2 tornado which tore apart, destroyed 2 large exhibition tents, and didn't flip over our telescopes, which I was just really amazed at. But as soon as the event happened, they had police and security in the area, because millions and millions of dollars of the gear is now exposed, and a lot of it was just thrown around and stuff, because we're getting all these kayaks and tent poles and all this camping stuff, outdoor stuff, including our telescopes are there. And this is when I worked for Meade Instruments, and we had our Meade telescope set up, and we come back the next day and they're all stolen. So big disasters like that, theft takes over. It's crazy.
Yep.
But,
it brings out the worst in some.
I was just glad that we didn't get seriously hurt, so that was good. Mike Overacker says, all my tripod legs have phosphorescent tape on their legs, and which is a good idea. So you can.
So what I do is I just take those red Bright Kid bracelets, the luminous ones where you break them like glow sticks.
Yeah.
And just put them around the base of each leg, and solves the problem. People have no trouble seeing them, and they're not overly bright, and they're not white either. Yeah.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't hurt your night vision.
Correct.
Let's see. Pekka says, he's talking to Chris. He says, right on, Chris. There's nothing better than a cup of hot coffee when everything is set up and you push the start button for imaging session to start. That's right. That's right. Well, I think coffee is the international drink of astronomers, so for sure. Except maybe, I don't think you like coffee, do you, Ken?
Oh, I love coffee.
Oh, you love it?
I love coffee. That's why I don't drink it.
That's why you do.
I was at one time, I have no idea how much coffee I was drinking. Or caffeine. I'd drink 2 Diet Dr. Peppers. I was driving from Bentonville to Salem Springs, so 35-minute drive, 40-minute drive. Yeah. And I'd drink a couple of Diet Dr. Peppers on the way to work, and then get there and they'd have the coffee pot on. And Newsroom coffee is notoriously stout coffee. And so I would
be a brand, Newsroom coffee.
Yeah, you could actually probably do that. And Newsroom whiskey as well, at least back in the day.
That's right.
So
Newsroom aspirin.
Newsroom aspirin. Yeah, it's a brown liquids. So I would drink an unknown amount of coffee. I just sort of keep topping off my cup and I was drinking 3 or 4 cups of coffee and then a Diet Dr Pepper for lunch. And I got sick one time, and I was so sick, that I didn't eat anything for 6 days. And I said, I'm getting off of caffeine. And I really thought it would be worse than it was, but the withdrawal symptoms, my sickness, coming up, throwing up, my sickness was so bad, it was worse than the withdrawal symptoms were. And I went cold turkey and had a couple of sips the next couple of days of a Diet Dr Pepper. And that's effectively the last caffeine I've had, except at church on Sundays when it's my month to make coffee, I'll make coffee and take a sip just to make sure it's not too weak or something and tastes weird. And other than that, I'm completely off of caffeine. And now if I could just get off carbs and food in general, I'd be a healthy person. But
it's all a process. So
it is. Right. Yep.
Well, thank you, Kent. Thanks for sharing that experience with us. And we will have more programming for going on the rest of the week. So you've got a bird program tomorrow on the wing.
Yes, sir.
And then we have Focus on Astrophotography with Tyler Bowman.
So Scott, tomorrow night we'll be going down under for On the Wing.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Both kookaburras and lorikeets.
Lorikeets. Okay.
Yep.
Yep. And I'll have to show you. I've been taking pictures of this nest out in. I think I showed you already, but
no, you didn't. Is it a goose nest?
No. My daughter made a bird feeder. She went to Hobby Lobby and she bought. They have like these unfinished, unpainted wood things. It looks like this little house with the little square thing in there, and she thought that would be a good bird feeder. So, we were filling it up with bird seed. We were buying bird seed and stuff, and all kinds of songbirds and stuff came into our patio, which was great. And so I had to do a business trip, last week. And so I filled it up before I left. And then I was going to fill it up again when I got back. And I looked in there to fill it up, and it was populated with eggs. So
just like that. Wow.
Beautiful nest, and I'll give you the picture so you can use it.
What kind of bird is it?
I don't know. It's a mousy brown little small bird, So I got a picture of the bird.
Some kind of wren. Probably a Carolina wren.
Really, really shy.
Does its tail stick straight up when it perches?
Yeah, I think so.
It's gonna be a wren of some sort, right?
Yeah. But initially I saw only 4 eggs, and now I went there this morning, looked at it, and took another picture. There's a 5th egg in there.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
I didn't know if they could keep laying eggs or not, but there we go. And Pekka says, soon the tourist birds will have come to Sweden and have their vacation here. And as we all know, under vacations, the family grows. So there you go. Thank you, Pekka.
All right.
Okay, so Chris, thank you very much. I'm glad you were able to watch, and hope you get feeling a lot better soon. And we will see you guys tomorrow. And until that time, keep looking up.
See you, everybody. Bye-bye.
So it's a beautiful sunny day, and we have our refractor out, and I've got my eclipse glasses on, and I've got my safe solar filter. Of course, the eclipse is not here yet, but I wanted to take a few minutes just to show you some things about solar filter safety. The filters that we use is the Thousand Oaks material. It is rated to the highest ISO standards. And actually independently tested by us as well. So just to make sure that those standards are met. So if you're going to use a telescope to look at the partial phases, and let me underline partial phases to you. You use eclipse glasses to observe the sun in partial phases when it's in total. If you're going to be on the path of totality, you can take the glasses off, and only during that time, which is going to be roughly 2 minutes this time on August 21st, only during that time can you directly look up at where the sun is, because it's completely blocked out. You'll see the corona, you'll see, you know, lots of really cool effects that they'll leave you speechless. But during all the partial phases, you have to have safe solar filtration. So how do you do it properly? Let me show you. First off, let's show you what you shouldn't do. What you shouldn't do is put on eclipse glasses and look through the telescope that's unfiltered. And I'll show you exactly why here. We're going to point the telescope directly at the sun. And right now, we have sunlight coming right through the eyepiece. I can turn that up a little bit. If you use solar glasses and look right at the filter material, you see it's already burning. It's burning a hole right through the solar filter material. That is how powerful a telescope is. So this is definitely something you don't want to do. You can now see that there is a hole through there, and that could be your eye. So this is what can happen if you think that you can use eclipse glasses to look through unfiltered telescopes or binoculars. If you do that, the sun's energy is going to burn right through the filter and burn right into your eye. So if you're going to use a telescope or a pair of binoculars to watch the partial phases of a total eclipse, or just to observe the sun to look for sunspots or something like that, make sure that you are using an over-the-lens solar filter that has the proper ISO safety rating and all of that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this filter on. It's you can see how snugly it's fitting here. This is not about to come off, but you know, if you have a loose fitting filter, use tape. Do anything that you can to make sure that the filter is not going to come off. And then the other thing is too is that finder scopes, optical finder scopes are like little telescopes, and they need to be filtered as well. In this case, I just have a red dot finder. There is no magnifying power to it, so I'm not going to use it to sight the sun in. The way I'm going to sight in the sun is literally as I'm going to look down at the shadow and align the scope up so I'm getting the smallest shadow possible of the telescope as it's hitting the ground. And now I can safely look at the sun in comfort and look at sunspots, and if we have partial phases going on in the eclipse, I'll see them all.
If you looked at the moon over the course of a few weeks, you'd probably notice that it looks slightly different every day. The change in its shadow is based on where the moon is in its orbit. We call this cycle the phases of the moon, and it occurs roughly once a month. At least twice a year, however, something quite different happens. The moon passes through the shadow cast by the Earth, causing it to look extremely unusual for a short period of time. From the Earth, the moon will appear to darken and turn a deep red before eventually returning to normal. This is called a lunar eclipse. If we were to look at what happens from space during an eclipse, it would go something like this. First, the moon passes through what's called the penumbra, where the sun's light is only partially obscured. This results in only a slight darkening of the moon. As the moon continues along its path, however, it enters what's called the umbra, where all direct light from the sun is blocked. But if the sun is blocked, why does the moon turn red? When light from the sun goes by the side of the Earth, it passes through a long and thick layer of Earth's atmosphere. Shorter wavelengths of sunlight, like blue, are scattered by the atmosphere, so by the time the light has finished its trip to the moon, more of the longer wavelengths, like red, are left over. On the Earth, the same thing happens at sunset as the ground you stand on gradually passes into night. As the eclipse ends, the moon leaves the umbra, returns to its normal color, and then leaves the penumbra, brightening and resuming its original cycle. Overall, the whole process lasts only from a few minutes to a few hours, so you'll have to be quick if you want to see it. But, as long as you're willing to stay awake, you'll catch the moon as you won't see it too often.
Bye.